Okay, let's start the chapter. In this class, we'll talk about the accountant as a business analyst. Now, it's chapter 2 in the accounting information systems. In this one, we will be focusing on mostly the, the learning objective is to describe the roles of accounting, financing function in business and why those roles requires knowledge of technology and business processes. Understand the importance of business processes documentations. Recognize the value of business models. Articulate the characteristics of activity models. Understand and apply the building block for BPMN, very important, the activity diagrams. Use pools and lanes to identify the process participations. Use pool and lanes, as we said, apply message flows to show the interaction between pools. Understand and apply the flow objective types and recognize the models feeding the activities and understand and apply data objects and stores to a model data created, update, transferred, and delete in a process. That's what we are looking for actually. We're looking for accountant, more than debit and credit. Talking about somebody in the core of the business and utilizing accounting information plus utilizing the technology available in the market. Now, here what we're talking about, basically changing the role of accountant in a business. In the past, accountants focus on stewardships and reporting functions, preparing financial reports and auditing. Now the accountants also take an active role in, and you see that in the CPA firms, they do that a lot, like Arthur Anderson, Ernest and Young, the one I was working for in Manitoba also. They are helping the enterprise to optimize the processes. These accountants also achieving a competitive advantage, helping in competitive advantage, and maximizing the shareholders' values. The changing role of accountant in a business is the rapid change in technology increase the availabilities of data. So there is what you call a business intelligence systems, and there is what you call an ERP system. I guess changed so much from 30 years ago as an accountant. Somebody who did accounting and 30 years ago is different than today. It's also information produced by system must support the information requirement of the enterprise decision makers. Accountants now involved in supporting evidence-based decision making, like the involved in the strategic planning, process improvement, and compliance metrics, like a cost accounting or managerial accounting. The roles of an accountant in a business, it is regulatory compliance. That's the first thing, which is operation wise is a finance and accounting processes, which is the support wise is management information system or management information. The tax return, which is a financial close, planning, budgeting, and forecasting. These are the supports you need to do this financial close. The stakeholder assurance, which is you want to make sure do the financial reporting and analysis. Once again, you need to do the performance management measurements. Investors relation is like a providing management information, which is once again is a performance management. Raising the capital and loans, it is People management, they do people management talking to the banks and investors, which is the support that you want to do is estimate the risk management from a strategic to operational, including the fraud risk. Board report using the IT to make finance and accounting processes more efficient and effective, which is it gets by investment appraisal and study statutory report, which is a part of the cost management and supply chain management. So the activity has been really, exposed and expanded in the accounting department due to the technologies and the roles is not only support, they are part of the decision making. First, to prepare for their changing role, accountant must understand the business and how it collects, summarize, and communication business information. So they need to understand the business, how it's running, understand how the business delivers value to its customers. So really, they are more than calculating debit and credit. Understand the risk that the business faces and the internal control in a place to mitigate those risks. And if you're taking supply, you understand supply chain management or operation, how you're supposed to mitigate the risk. Understand how accounting information system collect, summarize, and report business processes information, which is BPM. The definition. We need to understand what's a business process, what's a business analysis in general, or a business model. Why do we need a documentation? Here, the business process is a defined sequence of business activity that use resources to transform a specific input into a specific output to achieve the business goals. So the processes that you need when you get the input, you want to put it into output. Now, the business analysis is the processes of defining business processes, requirement, and evaluating the potential improvement. You look at the business, define the business processes, and see how you can improve these processes. Or sometimes you use it for defining what is needed from an information system. It's two many reasons for the business analysis. What we have also a business model, which is a simple abstract representation of one or more business processes. You just abstract it and see how things work in. And then you get what you call documentation, which is a very important stage in the business, which is explain how the business processes and business system works, a tool for information transmissions between members or generation, and tools for a communication also. Now let's see what's a business processes documentation. Business processes documentations include business processes models, business rules, user manual training manuals, product specification, software manuals, schedules, organizational chart, and strategic plan. Some of them you know, some of them you don't, but we're going to touch on most of these wording. Now, Sarbanes-Oxley Act 2002, there is a Canadian one, I think called C. Sarbanes-Oxley. This is an American, but the Canadian also similar to it. It is made documentation essential for business in 2002. Require manager to assess and attest to the business internal control structures and procedures. Requires external auditors to audit management assessment to the effective of internal control and express an opinion on the company internal control over financial reporting. It is the government in USA and in Canada made it must because if they don't have such things license, then they will not be able to get a contracts from the government. In the documentation, support the following: employee trainings, internal and external audit requirements, accountabilities, standardized communication within the enterprise, standardized communication between the enterprise and its customers, suppliers, and others, the stakeholders. And it's probably mostly under the responsibility of accounting department. It also facilitates process improvement. So in the first one is documentation support. The following, it facilitates a process improvement. It does facilitate or give you an understanding if what's effectiveness. And effectiveness means are the output obtained as expected, and also it can give you a benchmark for efficiencies. Can the output be produced with a fewer inputs? And there is what you call internal controls or controls working. Compliance, does the process comply with the constantly changing local, state, federal, and international laws and regulations also? So the question is, the value of business model is how many words would it take to provide the same information as this map of whatever, say San Diego. So when you look at the map, it's easy to allocate your place. Then if you read things and it tells you how to get to San Diego, for example, or to Toronto. So this is the challenge. So when you do things, when you do documentation, you're explaining this map to a documentation. Similarly, the business process and the system can also be difficult to describe concisely using words alone. So you need other, like a BPM or other models with the wordings. Business model, and this is where it comes to business model, like is a map allowing us to depict the important feature of the business processes, and similarly clearly and concisely. There are certain signs and ways of reading these business models, so save you so much writing also. We'll talk about these. Now, organizational changes include mergers, acquisition, outsourcing, offshoring, product innovation, and continuous process improvement and other business transformation. It is something common. Every business does that, go through that. A change can be expensive and risky because it's resistance. Careful planning, and we spoke about it in chapter 1 and 2 for the IT case implementing. Careful planning is necessary to implement a change in a way that minimize the cost and the risk. By now, you know what's the best way of doing a changes in an organization. Business model create values by providing communication. You see how uh, things creating some kind of communication is a good tool, and that's what it's the value of it, business model. So by providing some kind of a communication, training, analysis, and persuasion tools also. Presenting information more concisely and clearly than the written description, and we talked about the maps and versus wording. managing complexities by incorporating only the essential elements of it. And the non-essential can be explained by the users. Eliciting requirement when it's used to interview involved parties. You can use it when you are talking to parties, whatever is the reason for it. Reconciling viewpoint by providing an integrated view, simulating potential change, and specifying requirement for the actual business process, simulating it. Here is a sample of business model. And you notice that business model processes or business processes model is a result of some kind of a business rule, and the business rule there is some kind of a structure model, activity model, and then both together will be combined. It's think of activity models is the direction from point A to B, like the ship we said. In the structure model are likely the map of the area. So you can look at the map and you can go to the right side of the island or to the left side to reach the point. And both are business processes model. So the structures here is like the map, and the activities is like point A to B. So what's an activity model? It's used to analyze the processes and design change for the last 100 years. They did it during wartime. Describe the sequences of workflow in a business processes, represent the sequential flow and control logic of a set of related activities. Later on, we'll be discussing it more. It's a tool for planning, documenting, discussing, and implementing system or systems. There is a variety of activity models changing as technology change. Like, we know about the flow chart, data flow diagrams, for example. We know about business processes map, IDFO functional models, and we will talk a lot about BPMN or business processes models and notations. This is the most used these days, BPMN. Activity models must be able to describe events that start, change, and stop in the process. Where the events start, what changes is happening to the, and when it's supposed to stop. Activities and tasks within the processes itself, the sequence of the flow of the task, if it's a more than different stages that they have, discussion between points that affect the flow, and it comes also with one if analysis also, and the divisions of activities depend on the role of organizers, whether the product goes there and then goes up and then goes down, or keeps flowing in the same line of department. BPMN, or Business Process Model and Notation, is a graphical representation for specifying business processes in a business processes model. BPN originally developed by the Business Processes Management Initiative in the beginning, but recently BPN has been maintained by the Objective Management Group since the two organizations, like the initiative and the BPN, merged together in 2005. So it's not very, it's a recent science applied into accounting and businesses also. BPN, as we said, stands for business process and notation, but the objective management group maintained that BPN, and we said is first, it was in 2004 widely started being adopted, and it's specifically designed for process models. And and it's written for the business people in order to read too many things. It's no, you look at the models and you just understand how the business flow is happening. And there is a software also available to support this modeling and subsequently process simulation. You do that also. And it's mostly is done by whether HR or accounting or but supervised eventually by the accounting department. Good BPMN models, a good one, what it has, they're usually correct. They do not violate the BPMN standards, which is there's a certain standard. It has a certain models that certain icons should be used. They are clear. They describe the logic to the business processes. They also complete, because you cannot confuse the viewer. They show all the important element of the processes. They also consistent. So this, if you look at the BPMN, you can see the business done the same thing. Process logically should always result in a similar model. Excuse me. So the basic building blocks, you have what you call a start, immediate, and end. Event include the start, as you see it here, it looks like this. And then intermediate like this, and then the end. So any event includes start, immediate, and the end event. The immediate event affect the flow of the processes, but do not start or end the processes. So it is altered and affect the end, but it doesn't start itself. So start needed to start and then moves on. Immediate take care of it. Intermediate, I'm sorry, take care of it, and then there is some end happening. So there is three start, intermediate, and event, and the end. Now, the other con that you need to look at it and understand it is building blocks, which is activity. Activity represent a specific step into business process. Basic activities are modeled as round as a rectangle, as you see. Each activity is described with a short verb. Whatever is the verb, put together, disseminations, boiling. This is an activity. And then you have what you call a sequence flow. And the sequence flows is represented by arrows, as you see, to indicate it, the progression of activities in the process. So if it's a flow like this, or like this, or goes like this, these are the sequence flow, or like this together. And eventually we have what you call the gateways, which is shows the process branching and merging as a result of the decision, whether the process, two separate process is merging or when it's there, is separating. And that could be very useful, especially in manufacturing. Gateway open appears in a pairs on the diagram. The first two together as always. The first gateway shows the branching, and the second gateway shows the merging process. If we are talking about different branching in the merging process. So if you notice here, an example of BPN, a businessman should see that and understand how the business is happening. It's note that the event and the gateway do not contain any text here, but can be added as a notations. So you notice first customer present item, okay? You scan the item and identify the payment method. So right away you tell them how you're gonna pay. Then the payment method has two options, which is this is what is a branching. You will have a cash or you have the credit. The activity you do here is whether you accept the cash or accept the process the credit, and then it's a branching, and then bag is itemed, and this is the end of the event. You might, if you have more process here, you might want to add things here, probably more branching or more activities, intermediate activities. Identifying participant in this approach. So there is a pools and lanes in BPN. You need to understand the difference between the pools and lanes. It is about identifying participant in a business processes, and you see an example in the hospitals. Pools identify organization, each organization. So it could be a different organization that working together. Lanes identify a department or individual within the organizations. So each pool might have a few lanes in it. Task activities are placed in the lanes to show the responsibilities, and each pool must include one start and at least one end also. The sequence flow must not break between the starts and the end. It has to be clear, connected with each other, and can flow across the lanes, but not between the pools. So the sequence cannot go like this and then goes back. It has to be, the sequence flow must be not breaking between the start and end, and it cannot flow across, lanes, but not between the pools. So they can flow that lanes, but not between different pools. Here's an example to make it easy. We have what you call the whole thing is a pool. So a swim lane or a lane, you start here and then you do the activity. So you want to say this is the salesperson. He makes the requirement, close a sale. There is an activity comes to the manufacturing and activity two, activity three, and then goes to the salesperson who package it and give it to the customer. And this is the end. So pools shows organization and lanes shows departments or functional areas within the organization. The sequence flow can cross the lanes sequence flows, but must continue within the whole pool. Because if it goes out of this pool, then it needs to have another department or another company involved in it, which is not in this case. Now, we do exchange between two participants pools in the same process are represented as a message flows, and you will see the example. Message flows are shows as a dash line here, and with an arrow on the destination and end, and a small circles to see the source, where it starts and what's the destination it's going. The message flows content should be also described there. What's the flow all about? See, notice here what we have two different lane. Message flow are labeled to show the content messages. So what do you have? You have a patient and you have a hospital. The patient, when he starts getting sick, what will happen? Request an appointment. We did that with the applications of artificial intelligence. Request appointment. Then the doctor office will receive the request. Here, where you might assign appointment or ask you questions and then assign appointment is depend. You can branch it out. Once you build the basic thing, you can branch it out a lot. And then you assign appointment and get back to the patient to get the appointment. So it starts here, goes here, move to here, and get the appointment. And your appointment schedule at the time, and this is the end. This person, the L person, at the end of activity gets his appointment, and the doctor office assign the appointment. Sometimes the patient receive a request. And the reason why we show this, because we don't worry about what's the other side of the pool is there. What we care about is what's internal happening. We receive a request for appointment, we assign the appointment, and we send the appointment. And this is because you need to focus on your operation, not the other's operation. So it's usually the models are not very interested in the activity of external pole. Yet we remain concerned about the message flows between the pools. It's like you don't need to know how the supplier is doing everything on the details. All you need to know is get your products on time and exact amount with certain quality. So we can make the patient pool white, not looking at it, hiding the activity, but still showing the message that is coming from them because we need to react to it and whether there is a different activity from the message is happening. Note the message flow now attached to the edge of the patient. So as you see, is a back flow. There's other things that you need to know a little bit about them is there is what you call exclusive gateways, inclusive gateways, and parallel gateways. Exclusive for branching, exclusive gateways, only one path can be taken out of this gateway. For instance, of the processing depending on a branching condition. Inclusive, everything has to be there, a branching gateway, one or more path can be taken. And then you have the parallel, which is a branching, and you see what we mean here in this example. You see, there is a plan for a trip. So there is a travel model. In the exclusive, you reserve a flight and say maybe you want to reserve a car rentals. So the trips involve either a flights or a car rentals, but not the both. So they might be going for a flight or a car rental, but not the both. In the inclusive is the trip may involve either a flight or a rental or both together. And that's when you see lots of the traveling agencies application, they say trips, flights, car rental, or both together, and they try to push the both by giving you cheaper rates. And then when you have a parallel, which is, we said here, if you notice, this is exclusive, one of the things. This is inclusive, could be one or two together. And then you have what you call a parallel gateways, which is a planned trip, which is uh, the trip will require reservation for 3 levels, which is a flight, rental car, and hotel accommodations. So these are three has to be done together in order to have a successful service or product. It's like a building 3 parts of a machine, a product, and product, and they have to be assembled together. These have to go together. Best practice for BPM modeling. You need to focus on a business process at a time, each one business process separately. You clearly identify the event that start and end the process. Include essential element but avoid the distracting details. Think about no one is about tokens now. Label activities clearly with a verb and objective. Example, pay invoice, collect funds, pay cash as you see, receiving cash or credit card, and model the irritativities, get a feedback to improve the accuracy and clarities. So this is end of the chapter. Thank you.